Welcome to the Southeastern North Carolina radio reading service, a United Way partner agency. We're located on the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. Today is Tuesday, November the 14th, and your radio hosts today are
Jessica Bullock
and Tina Beatty, and we will be reading the news for today's edition of the Fayetteville Observer, and Jessica has the weather.
Okay,
Cold.
Today will be a high of 58, partly sunny with a low of 36 degrees. Tomorrow, which is Wednesday, we have a high of 59 degrees, a low of 39, partly sunny as well. On Thursday, we have a high of 67 degrees, a low of 37 degrees, mostly sunny. And on Friday, partly sunny with a high of 58 degrees, a low of 40 degrees. And on Saturday, a high of 69 degrees, warmer, an afternoon thunderstorm perhaps, and a low around 39 degrees. Today in history, a strong Arctic front pushed through the Carolinas in 2013, bringing surprising wintry precipitation to the southern sandhills. Florence, South Carolina, and Lumberton reported light snow, which tied for the earliest snowfall ever recorded there.
Well, let's see if I remembered that. Okay, today in history. Today is Tuesday, November the 14th. There are 318 days. Oh, no there aren't. This is the 318th day of 2017. There's that many days left, we've missed something. Of 2017, and there are 47 days left in the year. So that's not many, is it? Today's highlight. On November the 14th, 1889, inspired by the Jules Verne novel Around the World in 80 Days, New York World reporter Nellie Bly, Elizabeth Cochran, set out to make the trip in less time than the fictional Phileas Fogg. She completed the journey in 72 days. Excuse me. In 1851, Herman Melville's novel Moby Dick, or The Whale, was published in the United States almost a month after being released in Britain. In 1910, Eugene B. Ely became the first aviator to take off from a ship. As his Curtiss Pusher biplane rolled off a sloping platform on the deck of the scout cruiser USS Birmingham off Hampton Roads, Virginia. In 1925, the first group exhibition of surrealistic paintings opened at the Galerie Pierre in Paris. In 1940, during World War II, German warplanes destroyed most of the English town of Coventry. Boy, did they ever. In 1944, Tommy Dorsey and his orchestra recorded Opus No. 1 for RCA Victor. In 1965, the U.S. Army's first major military operation of the Vietnam War began with the start of the 5-day Battle of Nha Trang. The fighting between American troops and North Vietnamese forces ended on November 18th, with both sides claiming victory. In 1969, Apollo 12 blasted off for the moon. In 1970, a chartered Southern Airways DC-9 crashed while trying to land in West Virginia, killing all 75 people on board, including the Marshall University football team and its coaching staff. Birthdays today. Now, I've looked on here, and I've looked twice, and there are no birthdays for November the 14th. You guys let me down on a Tuesday again. I don't know. So, let's see what's in the paper. Actress Kathleen Hughes is 89. Former NASA astronaut Fred Hayes is 84. Jazz musician Ellis Marsalis is 83. Composer Wendy Carlos is 78. Writer P.J. O'Rourke is 70. Britain's Prince Charles is 69. Rock singer musician James Young from Styx is 68. Singer Stephen Bishop is 66. Pianist Yanni is 63. Actress Laura San Giacomo is 56. Rapper Reverend Run from Run DMC is 53. Actor Josh Duhamel is 45. Rock musician Travis Barker is 42. Actor Brian Dietzen is 40. Actress Olga Kurilenko is 38. Actress comedian Vanessa Bayer is 36. Actor Russell Tovey is 36. And actor Corey Michael Smith is 31.
Okay, I have the Livewire Observer Staff section. Free brace scam is America's third most popular. Question. I get calls every few weeks saying seniors can get free back braces, etc., and saying I qualify for a free back brace. It doesn't really sound legitimate. Can you tell me if this is legitimate or a scam? RC of Fayetteville. Answer. Sad to say, it's probably make that just about a lead pipe certainty that it's a scam. The National Council on Aging says the free brace scam is third most popular in the United States. Number 1 is a plethora of you want a prize scams, followed by you owe the IRS lots of money scam. The basic scam is this. Through phone or postcard, some place with a medical sounding name offers you a free knee or back brace. From there, the company needs just a little information like your social security number, since Medicare will need it. Oh, and there may be a small shipping fee included as well. Surely y'all know by now, anyone who calls you and asks for such information is up to no good. Someone asking for payment on something you didn't ask about is definitely up to no good. Even if your back is hurting like a racehorse toting Andre the Giant, there's probably nothing but heartache to go with your backache. If you don't hang up on these folks. Jake Jacobs. Livewire seeks to answer questions of general interest in consumer topics. Initials are used to identify questionnaires, but names are given. Contact Livewire at livewire@fayobserver.com or at 486-3516.
Okay. Here's Need to Know, which we usually do read next. Item 1. American Indian Regalia Showcase, the event, that's the title of this piece, I guess, has a colon after it. The event is today at 6:30 p.m. at the Mary Livermore Library on the campus of the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. American Indians will model an array of elaborate and diverse regalia that displays their heritage, traditions, and artistic expressions accompanied by native music and dance. Well, that must be good. A reception will follow the event. For more information, call 910-521-6837. Item 2. Clash of the Carriers. The exhibit is on display through February the 4th at the Airborne and Special Operations Museum in downtown Fayetteville. On loan from the Australian National Maritime Museum, Clash of the Carriers, the Battle of the Coral Sea, highlights 4 days in May 1942 that changed naval warfare forever. Video content includes interviews with American and Australian veterans of the battle. It is free. Item number 3. Peanut Butter and Jelly Campaign. The North Carolina Guardian Ad Litem program is collecting plastic jars of peanut butter and jelly through January the 17th for distribution to local food banks and to raise awareness about what it does. Volunteers with the program advocate for abused and neglected children in the court system. Last year, Cumberland County's Judicial District 12 served 1,127 children and held more than 6,200 hearings. To become a volunteer, go to volunteerforgal. Let's see, volunteerforgal.org. Drop off food items at the agency's office in room 2 on the lower level of the Cumberland County Courthouse, 117 Dick Street. And the final item today, a Dickens holiday. The annual event is downtown Fayetteville is November 24th from 1 to 9 p.m., featuring carriage rides, arts and crafts, shopping and a candlelight procession. For more information, call 323-1776, and usually that's the day after Thanksgiving that they have that. I'd have to look on a calendar, but we want to hear from you, says the paper. Please submit your ideas and your events in writing at least 10 days in advance. Email calendar@fayeobserver.com or fax details to 486-3545, or for questions you may call 486-3500.
Public safety, Cumberland County arrest Amber Renee Daigrepoint. It's Daigrepeont. 23 of the 500 block of Lakeside Lane, Sanford, was charged Monday with felony larceny, possession of stolen goods and property, and obtaining property by false pretense. Bail was set at $8,000. Heather Faye Adams, 34, of the 2900 block of Wilmington Highway, was charged Monday with forgery of notes, checks, warrants, uttering a forged instrument, and fraud, false pretense, or trickery. Bail was set at $1,558.33. Deron Chavella McIntyre, 27, of the 70 block of Capers Walk, was charged Sunday with weapons, possession by felony of firearms, etc., prohibited selling or delivering a controlled substance, Schedule VI, and manufacture of a controlled substance, Schedule VI. Bail was set at $12,500. Johnny Lee Wilson, 35, of the 300 block of East Carter Street, Clinton, was charged Sunday with weapons, possession by a felony of firearms, etc., prohibited possessions of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture a schedule, and manufacture of a controlled substance. Bail was set at $12,500. Isaac Jr. Artist, 24, homeless, was charged Sunday with failure to appear, felony. Bail was set at $10,000. Nikita Tana Robinson, 22, of the 4900 block of Skid Street, was charged Sunday with assault, inflicting serious injury, strangulation. No bail was set. Ahmad Naeem Shane, 17, of the 4000 block of Wellmont Drive, was charged Sunday with larceny, receiving or transferring stolen vehicles, and misdemeanor assault, inflicting serious injury. Bail was set at $60,000. Break-ins. 8th Street, 800 block, reported at 10:22 p.m. Sunday. Computer hardware and software, electronics equipment, and telephone were taken. Blayton Road, 400 block, reported at 5:52 p.m. Sunday. Battery charger taken. Vehicle break-in. Owen Drive, 400 block, reported at 7:43 p.m. Sunday. Car keys, cash, iPad, telephone, and purse were taken.
Okay. A couple of small items. Charity hopes to cook 5,000 turkeys. Operation Turkey, a nationwide non-profit group dedicated to feeding as many as possible, will return to the Cape Fear region with a goal of cooking 5,000 birds. Meals will be served November 23rd at the Christina Smith Center on Slater Avenue from 7 a.m. until noon. Based in Austin, Texas, the organization will open a feeding center in Fayetteville. The first Operation Turkey, held in Fayetteville in 2015, prepared 2,000 Thanksgiving meals to the less fortunate in the region. There is no cost for the meal. Local donations and volunteers help hold costs. For information or to volunteer, go online to operationturkey.com. What a worthwhile thing to do with your Thanksgiving. Charlie Daniels tickets go on sale on Friday. Tickets go on sale Friday at 10 a.m. for a March 8th concert at the Crown Theatre featuring the Charlie Daniels Band, the Marshall Tucker Band, and the Scooter Brown Band. Tickets for the Southern Uprising Tour are $35 to $100. Daniels had his first hit in 1973 with Uneasy Rider. He is best known for the 1979 song The Devil Went Down to Georgia, a #1 country hit. The Marshall Tucker Band scored country rock hits with Heard It in a Love Song, Fire on the Mountain, and Can't You See. The Scooter Brown Band released its first studio album, Between Hell and Texas, in 2009. Their latest self-titled album came out in 2015. Tickets can be purchased online at capefairtix.com, by phone at 888-257-6208, at the Crown Complex box office, or at the Leisure Travel office on Fort Bragg.
Baseball stadium short on local bids. Multiple Fayetteville City Council members voiced concern Monday after a lack of local bidders for construction of the $33 million downtown baseball stadium at a baseball committee meeting. It does concern me, Councilman Jim Arp said. In 2016, the city signed a memorandum of understanding with the Houston Astros for the city to build the stadium. In exchange, the Astros have agreed to have a minor league baseball team play in Fayetteville for a minimum of 30 years. The stadium is scheduled to be completed by opening day in spring of 2019. Christoph Ware, the deputy city manager, said the city has been targeting local contractors to do work on the stadium for two reasons. First, Ware said that local contractors likely will take pride in their work and want to help the community. Second, West said the city hopes to keep as much money in the local economy as possible through hiring local contractors. West said that the city only received one bid for site work and one bid for fencing from local companies, despite local companies offering these types of services. In addition, a local steel company did not bid for the steel work portion of the bid. A local company was the local bidder for one of 7 categories the city was receiving bids on. I'm a little bit surprised, Arp said. It's been all over the newspaper. It's been all over the media. Councilman Kirk DeVere raised concerns about how the city advertised for the contracts. He said advertisements in traditional media may not be enough to reach potential bidders. You have to communicate how people communicate nowadays, DeVere said. Arp said he was worried that local contractors were not bidding because they think it would be difficult to work with the city. Is that a perception that is keeping us from getting bids, Arp said. West said city staff would look into its process for reaching out to local contractors. Mayor Pro Tem Mitch Colvin also announced he would be stepping down as the chairman of the baseball committee now that he is the mayor-elect. He recommended that Art become chairman.
Okay. Soldiers return from Puerto Rico mission. Specialist Wade Scammahorn was barely through the door at Green Ramp when his 2 children bolted toward him. He grinned as Quinn 9 and Skylar 6 each grabbed their daddy's leg. "I'm speechless," he said, hugging his wife Rosalina. Scammahorn, a water purification specialist, was among a group of soldiers from Fort Bragg's 3rd Expeditionary Sustainment Command to return home late Monday from hurricane relief efforts in Puerto Rico. The soldiers deployed to the island shortly after the hurricane had made landfall in September and had a critical role in distributing food and purifying water. "It was a job of a lifetime," Scammahorn said. "I was happy to help." Also returning were soldiers from the 18th Airborne Corps, 44th Medical Brigade. The hurricane, which formed September 16th in the Atlantic, made landfall on the island of Dominica with Category 5 strength on September 18th and only slightly weakened as it struck Puerto Rico the following day. U.S. military assets supported the Federal Emergency Management Agency as it worked to support state and local authorities. Soldiers from the 3rd Expeditionary Sustainment Command, which specialize in logistics and distribution management, purified more than 300,000 gallons of water for residents of the island. "It felt good," said Staff Sergeant Tevin Williams, who led a platoon of soldiers working to purify water. A lot of people were grateful. The mission was passed to soldiers from a National Guard unit who continue working to provide food and clean water for residents. Danielle Hogan, began to tear up as she heard a plane engine roaring at Green Ramp. She and her son, Trevon Riggins, were waiting for her wife, Specialist Jesselie Sangley Alvarez, a water treatment specialist. "I'm very proud," she said. "I feel like I have a superhero coming home." Hogan said it was difficult being separated, especially since there wasn't power on the island in the first week of her deployment. She said her wife was heartbroken when she saw the widespread devastation on the island. In phone conversations home, Hogan said her wife described people walking for miles for food and children bathing in dirty water. Although she missed her wife, Hogan said she couldn't be prouder of her accomplishments. She was helping people, she said. "I was rooting her on while she was there."
World War I exhibit opens at Fayetteville Museum. Amid the region-wide celebration of Veterans Day, City Museum unveiled a new exhibit honoring Fayetteville's World War I history. Fayetteville over there opened at the Fayetteville Area Transportation and Local History Museum on Tuesday. The exhibit marks the centennial of the Great War by highlighting the area's organizations, businesses, institutions, families, and individual men and women and children who rose to the occasion when their nation needed them. The museum, located in a restored train depot at 325 Franklin Street in downtown Fayetteville, offers a look at how the Fayetteville area impacted the war, both overseas and on the home front. The exhibit will be on display through 2018. The Fayetteville Area Transportation and Local History Museum has free admission. It is open Tuesday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay. More veterans finding jobs, receiving VA benefits. A survey of more than 34,000 veterans has found that a growing number of veterans have trust in the Department of Veterans Affairs and are finding employment. The results are part of the 8th annual survey conducted by the Wounded Warrior Project. Officials use the survey to shape programs and services to the needs of veterans. The survey findings were released the week before Veterans Day. They show that the veterans' unemployment rate has dropped to 13%, down from more than 16% last year. A growing number of veterans also have reported having earned bachelor's degrees or better, and more survey respondents are now receiving VA benefits. In addition to success, the results also detail challenges facing veterans, such as post-traumatic stress and obesity. According to the Wounded Warrior Project, 77% of veterans who completed the survey reported PTSD as their main health challenge, up slightly from last year, and 87% reported that they are considered overweight or obese, up from 86% last year. The full survey results are available at woundedwarrior-project.org.
College basketball coaching legend Jeff Capel Jr. dies at age 64. Jeff Capel Jr., a basketball coach legend who built his career at Fayetteville State before coaching in the NBA, died Monday after a battle with ALS. He was 64 years old. Mr. Capel, a Southern Pines native, was diagnosed in March 2016 with ALS, often referred to as Lou Gehrig's disease. It attacks the nerve systems in the brain and spinal cord, and there is no known cure. The Capel family has a deep connection to Fayetteville and Fayetteville State University, where a gymnasium is named for the family's patriarch, Felton Jeffrey Capel Sr. Fayetteville State University family is saddened by the passing of one of its most respected alumni and former coaches. Chancellor James Anderson said in a statement Monday, "Coach Capel and his family are held in high regard by FSU, his alumni and supporters, and he will be missed. Our thoughts and prayers are with his parents, wife, children, and family members during this difficult time." Mr. Capel played basketball for the Broncos for one season before joining the Army for 4 years, though he would continue his studies with FSU to earn a degree in health and physical education. After a stint as head coach at his alma mater, Pinecrest High School, and as an assistant at Wake Forest University, Mr. Capel became Fayetteville State University's head coach and athletic director in 1989. Ken Spencer, the men's basketball coach at FSU, played for Mr. Capel at Pinecrest in the mid-1980s and was his graduate assistant in Mr. Capel's final season with the Broncos. "He's the reason I'm a coach today," Mr. Spencer said. "He taught you how to be a man." I think even at high school level, what was more important to him than just teaching you about basketball was teaching you the things you were going to need to survive in life. Mr. Spencer said he's incorporated almost everything he learned from Mr. Capel into his own coaching approach. The discipline he instilled in each one of us as players is what's going to get you over the hump in tough situations and teaches you how to face adversity, Mr. Spencer said. He was so good at that, and at the same time, he had a way to let you know that even though he was disciplining you, he still loved you. Eric Tucker, who was FSU's women's basketball coach for 17 years, said arrived in fall 1992 with only a stint as a junior high school coach on his resume. "I was making the leap from junior high to college, which was unheard of, but Coach Capel never treated that like it was a milestone around my neck," Mr. Tucker said. "He was so warm and open-armed. He took me in like a little brother because he knew at that time I hardly knew anything at all." Mr. Tucker said Mr. Capel took time to lend guidance to the women's program, providing a lesson that Mr. Tucker still uses today in his role as head coach of the fledgling women's basketball program at Fayetteville Technical Community College. "Last Thursday night, we were working on a press break that he taught me," Mr. Tucker said. "He took the time to teach me and the girls at Fayetteville State a 1-3-1 walk-up press break, and we used it the other night." Mr. Capel coached the Broncos for 4 years. After a 7-21 mark in his first season, he turned the program around, leading the team to finish 14-13, 22-8, and 29 in the next 3 seasons. The Broncos earned a bid to the NCAA Division II tournament in 1992-1993, Mr. Capel's final season with the team. Julian Capel, a nephew of Mr. Capel, is Fayetteville State's Director of Student Engagement. He recalls being a ball boy, along with the coach's son, Jeff III, and Jason on the sidelines at FSU. "Uncle Jeff had a trademark where he would bite down on his towel," Julian Capel said. "I remember that as a kid." Julian Capel said his uncle's imprint on the university goes beyond his wins and losses on the court. "He was a great coach, obviously. That was his passion, and he did it well," he said. "His legacy is in the players and the impact he had on their lives and in the community." Mr. Capel took over the North Carolina A&T program in 1993 before moving on the next year to Old Dominion, where he coached 7 seasons. He also served a 2-year tour with the Fayetteville Patriots of the NBA's Developmental League. He made the leap to the NBA in 2004 when he started a 7-year stretch as an assistant for the Charlotte Bobcats. He finished his NBA coaching career in 2013 as an assistant with the Philadelphia 76ers. Mr. Capel's sons have carried on the family's rich basketball tradition. Jeff Capel III led Southview to its 1993 State 4A championship before enjoying a 4-year career at Duke. He is now Duke's assistant head basketball coach, in position he took after successful turns as head coach at Virginia Commonwealth University in Oklahoma. And Jason Capel was a 4-starter at North Carolina from 1998 to 2002. He was among the last players recruited by legendary Tar Heels coach Dean Smith. Today he is Vice President of Development for the United States Basketball Association. It was one of Mr. Capel's sons who announced the ALS diagnosis to the world, writing a first-person narrative published on the Players Tribune website in January. "My dad's ALS. I am sad to report continues to progress," Jeff Capel III wrote. "We are fighting, always fighting, but still in the end we are remaining realistic. The truth is, ALS will take my dad's speech, and it will take my dad's movement, and yes, there is a good chance that it will eventually take his life." Julian Capel said that the report shed light on the severity of Mr. Capel's condition for the wider family. "Because the family is very private, it wasn't until my cousin Jeff took the article out in the Players Tribune that we were fully aware of his condition," Julian Capel said. After the diagnosis, the USDA partnered with the Duke ALS Clinic in Durham to start the Jeff Capel Jr. ALS Research Fund to support efforts to find a cure. The USDA sponsored the Capel basketball camp at Fayetteville State in October, with all proceeds going to the fund. Condolences poured in for the Cable family on Monday. Today, we mourn the passing of an outstanding coach and role model in our sport, Duke coach Mike Krzyzewski said. Jeff Capel Jr. had such a positive impact on so many people throughout his life. However, his greatest living legacies are his son, Jeff III, and Jason, who have represented their respective institutions and their entire family with dignity and class. All of us associated with Duke basketball, and specifically the Krzyzewski family, offer our deepest condolences to the Capels during this difficult time. North Carolina basketball coach Roy Williams said Mr. Capel was someone who people genuinely enjoyed being around. Big Jeff was an amazing role model for his sons as a coach, but even more as a father and as a man. He was a person I had a great deal of respect for and proudly considered a friend, Mr. Williams said. Jason, Jeff, and the entire Capel family need everybody's support at this time, with the hope that we will all remember the great man that was their father.
Okay, this is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a non-profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our P.O. Box number is 35029, and that's Fayetteville 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. And your radio hosts are
Jessica Bullock
and Tina Beatty, and we are proud to serve you today. And here I have something from Lillington. Harnett County Sheriff Wayne Coates said his department has, and this is in quotation marks, the person who has taken responsibility, was shooting a 15-year-old early Monday in a home outside Lillington. Published accounts say the shooter is a 16-year-old, but Coates said during a brief phone interview that he has not identified the suspect. The shooter's name had not been released as of 5:30 p.m. Monday. He is cooperating with us, Coates said. We're calling it a homicide because we don't know yet. We keep the district attorney informed today. At this point, he has not been charged. Owen Caltagirone, 15, of the 2000 block of NC 27, died shortly after being shot after midnight, the Harnett County Sheriff's Office said. He had been shot in the chest with a shotgun. According to published accounts, the suspect told authorities that he accidentally shot his friend. Coates said the teens were supposedly best friends. It doesn't appear any alcohol or drugs were involved in the shooting, he said. Authorities said deputies responded to a call about a gunshot victim at 12:51 a.m. CPR was administered to the victim. Coates said one of the people assisting in CPR claimed responsibility for the shooting and said it was an accident. We do know that the 911 center was giving them instructions on how to do CPR, he said. Excuse me. He was put in the back of a pickup and they were headed toward town, Lillington. A deputy stopped them and started CPR on him. Coates said he was uncertain if the victim died on the scene or en route to the hospital. Caltagirone and the suspect were in a one-room building behind the NC 27 home where Caltagirone's parents and grandparents lived. Coates said, more like an outbuilding, the sheriff added of the room. It had a mattress in there. Deputies found several weapons in the building, Coates said in published reports, and the shooting remains under investigation.
Cancel OK's Haymont Grill resume. The Fayetteville City Councilman unanimously voted Monday night to approve the rezoning of property that is home to the iconic Haymount Grill and Steakhouse. The vote will allow for construction of a restaurant on the property to continue. The restaurant, owned by Pete Skinter's, was gutted during an early morning fire on April 9, 2016. Before the fire closed, the restaurant is served as a popular meeting spot for residents and city and civic leaders alike. I'm proud to be a part of the Fayetteville community, Skinner said after the meeting. I've been working with the community and people have been supportive. Rebuilding of the eatery has been delayed partially because of the restaurant's old commercial zoning status under the Unified Development Ordinance, which is a combination of the city's zoning and subdivision regulations. The Haymount Grill was one of many businesses that did not have to abide by the code because it was grandfathered, and when the law went into effect in August of 2011. However, the code mandates that buildings that sustain more than 50% of damage must be brought up to code. Specifically, the restaurant would have had to increase its parking lot size and the amount of plants around the building. The Haymount Grill property is located on a triangular island where Morganton and Fort Bragg roads converge in the commercial district of historic Haymount. Its location made bringing the restaurant up to the standards nearly impossible, according to Skinters and other concerned city council members. The city council voted to change the restaurant zoning from neighborhood commercial to neighborhood commercial conditional zoning, which allows Skinters to not have to have a large parking lot or increase landscaping. Skinter said the council's vote to rezone the restaurant will allow him to continue rebuilding on the site. In the application form for the rezoning, he said the property would be used for a restaurant on the main level with offices on the second level. The proposed hours of operation would be 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Skinter said, and he couldn't reveal any other details about his plans for the property that weren't in the application. We are still making plans, Skinter said. Asked about specifics for the restaurant and office space, it might become the Haymount Plaza. Skinter said he has been asked most about whether he will keep the Haymount sign. Skinter said he will try hard to maintain and keep it for the new property. A lot of people said they love the sign, Skinter said.
Yeah, it's not spelled like the rest of the area, and that's why people like it so much. It's spelled Haymont without the Y. Yeah. The news today is not a lot. You know, the newspaper keeps getting smaller. And I looked at it this morning and thought, what in the world are we going to read? So I brought my Our State magazine with me. There's a couple of things in there I thought you might enjoy. This is the editorial by Elizabeth Hudson. She's the editor-in-chief of the magazine, and her editorials are delightful because she writes about things that happened to her when she was a child and memories she has. So it's entitled Bowls Full. My grandmother used her blue willow plates every day for meatloaf and field peas, for pork chops and fried okra. But at Thanksgiving, she pulled out the special dishes, her W. Dalton china in Sincerity 318, white with a thin platinum band around the rim, from the bottom drawer of the sideboard in the dining room, where otherwise the dishes stayed covered up with an old towel all year. The large platter for the turkey, the gravy boat for the gravy, the serving bowls for the candied yams, for the green beans, the delicate cups and saucers for black coffee poured from the percolator, the 7-inch dessert plates for the pecan pie, the pumpkin pie, the sweet potato pie, the white wine cake, the persimmon pudding. Oh, so much food! My grandmother cooked for 3 days, starting on Tuesday with a pan of biscuits for the dressing, which needed a few days to stale up. Then she moved on to the pies, which stayed covered in foil on the table on the back porch. It took all day on Wednesday for the sides, the mashed potatoes, the creamed corn, the baked apples, the broccoli casserole, the squash casserole. She rose early Thursday morning to get the turkey in the oven and finally to make that dressing. This was the Thanksgiving I loved so much, a house so full with people, plates so full with food. When my grandmother died 22 years ago, my mother took over the Thanksgiving meal, following those same steps. Now there are only a few of us to eat all this food, but she still pulls out the pottery that she and Dad collected so many years ago, the brown glazed JV coal pieces from Seagrove for her green beans, for her turkey, for her squares of that dressing. I think about how much my dad loved her dressing, how he'd sneak a piece after she pulled the pan out of the oven, how we loaded up our plates in the kitchen and carried them two-handed to the table, how we'd sop up everything with a fresh pan of biscuits, the thing that started this 3-day cooking fest in the first place. Everything comes full circle, and I think about my own china cabinet, which now holds my grandmother's sincerity china, the entire set, and about how maybe one day I'll get to pull it all out for a feast of my own. As the years tick by, I think about the ways we fill our bowls, the ways we fill our lives, when the people who were once part of our celebrations aren't there anymore. Last year, on the Thursday before Thanksgiving, I went to First Baptist Church in Greensboro for the annual Feast of Caring event hosted by Greensboro Urban Ministry. The way it worked was that you paid $25 for admission and got to select a handmade bowl that had been donated by a North Carolina potter. Then you went upstairs for a spread of food, 16 soups, and I know those volunteers surely had been cooking for days. Hundreds of people were there, and although I didn't know anyone when I arrived, I left having talked to several tables of folks, all of us wishing each other a happy Thanksgiving, all of us with our new bowls in hand, all of us grateful for the chance to have them filled. And that was written by Elizabeth Hudson, editor-in-chief of our state magazine. Makes you hungry.
Duke Energy shows off Bladen Solar Farm. Duke Energy expects to get about a third of its new energy from solar power, a company official said Monday. The other two-thirds of Duke Energy's new energy likely will come from natural gas, according to company spokesman Randy Willis. Natural gas plants completed solar farms, which don't provide continuous levels of power, Willis said. The natural gas plants can ramp up production quickly to make up for drops in solar power, he said. It's a balance in that, he said. Duke Energy owns and operates a 120-acre solar farm in Bladen County that has 105,000 solar panels and produces about 23 megawatts of electricity. The company leases land for the facility from DuPont, which has a plant nearby. Matt Israel, Duke Energy's manager of regulated solar, said the Bladen County site was one of the first 4 built by the company. Some of the electricity from solar farm goes to the nearby DuPont plant, while the rest goes into the power grid, he said. The solar farm is now one of more than 35 Duke Energy solar facilities in North Carolina. The company also buys power from more than 700 other solar farms across the state. Israel said the Bladen County solar farm has fixed tilt solar panels, which are stationary. Duke Energy's next solar project near Salisbury is scheduled to have panels which follow the sun as it crosses the sky. Duke Energy now gets about 2% to 3% of its total energy from solar power, Willis said. That amount increases to about 8% during a typical summer day and can reach as high as 18% on a mild, sunny day, he said. And all about 2,500 megawatts of electricity on Duke Energy's power grid comes from solar farms. At peak times, that would power nearly 500,000 homes. Duke Energy has agreed to more than double the amount of power it gets from solar sources under a state law passed in June. The company will bring an additional 2,660 megawatts of power onto the grid. Willis said the new law will bring order to the growth of solar power in North Carolina, which has been chaotic. It was coming on where people wanted it, not where we needed it, he said. Duke Energy also is investing in its battery project, which can store energy from solar farms when the sun isn't shining, Willis said. I think there is a demand from customers to have more renewable energy, he said.
Okay. Here's Myron Pitt's column today. Clubs raise money to bring light to Puerto Rico. Magda Grillo Thackett grew up in Carolina, not one of the southern states here in the mainland United States, but the city in Puerto Rico. Carolina is in the, I'm sure it's pronounced Carolina, is in the northeast part of the Caribbean island, just east of the capital, San Juan, and is home to the island's main airport, Luis Muñoz Marin International Airport. Like the rest of the U.S. territory, Carolina, Puerto Rico, was hit hard in September storms, especially by Hurricane Maria. In that Category 4 storm, 95-mile-per-hour winds battered the airport and shut it down for weeks. A large part of Baggett's extended family lives in Carolina. She is asked how everyone is doing. It's a hard question to answer, she says. Their houses are okay, their spirits are hurting. More than 70% of the island is still without power after Maria hit September 20th. Most residents are still without cell phone or internet service, and drinkable water is scarce in many places. Baggett is able to keep up with her family in Puerto Rico because one cousin has the luck of having internet, she says. He was kind of my point of contact. But she said she was in contact with Rotary Club members before she could even reach some of her family. Baggett, a member of the Fayetteville Rotary Club, the original club among the city's 3, knew the club is not generally dedicated to first response or emergency assistance, but she also knew that individual members open their hearts when a humanitarian crisis occurs. She and her husband, David L. Baggett, are past district governors of Rotary District 7730 in southeastern North Carolina. Baggett says she had been thinking of ways to help in Puerto Rico when other Rotarians approached her about lending aid. She says the District 7730 leadership asked me to lead an assistance effort aimed at assisting those in Puerto Rico who are still without power after nearly 2 months since Hurricanes Irma and Maria devastated the island. Mainland Rotarians have partnered with their counterparts in Puerto Rico to roll out Light Up the Night for Puerto Rico. It aims to deliver solar-powered lights to parts of the islands that have little hope of seeing electric power restored anytime soon. I used to live on the northwest corner of the island, and I can imagine, I remember what it looked like, and what I saw on television, it looked like everything was blown down. The Southeastern North Carolina District set a goal of $10,000. When the campaign officially ended on November 4th, double that amount had been raised. Baggett says the campaign was district-wide and Facebook-wide. Friends and family pitched in, as well as numerous Rotarians, even some she didn't know from clubs located elsewhere. Social media exposure brought us donations from California, Florida, Colorado, and other states, she says. As of Monday, checks were still coming in. The amount raised so far is $25,000. Still, Baggett jokes that she has been outdone by her own brother, who lives in California. He has the advantage of living in much more a big city. He has raised $250,000, which will go to various Puerto Rico relief efforts. As for the solar lights, Baggett is planning a trip to Puerto Rico in early December to distribute them. She will have 1,400 ready to go by then, and if more donations come in, even more than that. She has coordinated with clubs on the island to help with the distribution. As it happens, she will not be handing out the lights in Carolina, which is urban and where she expects power to be restored more quickly. The city had power briefly last week, but it went out again, she says. Many buildings have generators, including a condo the Baggetts own there. We're going to the remote locations in the mountains, she says, the smaller towns. She says she hopes the lights will bring comfort and a sense of normalcy for those without electricity. She also hopes to continue to work with Rotary clubs on the mainland and in Puerto Rico until the island where she was born is whole again. That's good work on her part. Okay, what you got? Letters to the... All right.
Oppression and confession. Some of us will not admit when we are wrong because it calls for an apology, and that just ain't happening. Satan has no intentions to admit when he is wrong either, because that is against his morals to confess that he has sinned, when he is the author of sin. The people crucified Jesus Christ after falsely accusing him of sin, even though he did not sin. The people did not apologize for their sins, but instead, Christ apologized to God for the people's sins when he asked God to forgive them, for they not know what they do. Still today, society believes that they did no wrong when they condemned the innocent. It's too much like wrong to do right, especially when man doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. Some might call it an honest mistake. There is no honest in error, just as there is no truth in a lie. Jesus Christ died for all of our sins, that we might have eternal life. I can imagine him looking down from the right hand of God and just shaking his head from side to side. God's foolishness is wiser than man, and God's weakness is stronger than man. For man to believe that it makes a man look weak to apologize is foolishness. To confess our sins is to be apologetic. Somehow man seems to love oppression more than confession. Raymond Wright, Fayetteville.
Okay, here's the Observer's opinion today. You know, there's always at least one opinion in the paper from our editors, and then there's op-ed pieces that that are written by syndicated columnists. But anyway, this one is by our guys. Prison staffing puts guards' lives at risk. Whoa. So far this year, 5 prison employees have died from attacks by inmates. 4 of those deaths were the result of an October 12th escape attempt at Pasquotank Correctional Institution. The breakout failed, but the inmates in the prison's sewing shop set a fire and attacked guards with the tools used in the shop, including screwdrivers and scissors. Just before the disturbance began, only one guard was monitoring more than 30 prisoners in the shop, along with the sewing instructor. The attacks at the Pasquotank, that's hard to say, prison put a new spotlight on the conditions that prison guards face through the state's correctional system. According to the Associated Press, that prison was 28% short of its full complement of 266 correctional officers at the time of the attack. That's not unusual for this state's prisons. At the same time, the Bertie Correctional Institution was 26% short, and the guard staff at Hyde Correctional Institution was down 38%. Turnover in many of the state's prisons is 100% a year. Every guard position turns over annually. I mean, can you imagine going to work as a prison guard? You wouldn't last long. It would just, it says here, it's a personnel nightmare, with inexperienced guards more the rule than the exception. Why? More than anything else, it's a dangerous job. East Carolina University recently surveyed more than 1,200 of the state's prison guards and their supervisors. Nearly 90% of them said they believe there's a good chance they'll get hurt on the job from inmate violence, and nearly 40% of them said they wanted to quit. Many of the state's prisons are located in rural areas, which makes recruiting even harder. State prison officials told the News and Observer that they're making progress in hiring more guards, and they hope to have at least some prisons fully staffed in the near future. But the challenge is keeping them that way. And the violence raises another question. Are those prisons safe for their employees, even when they're fully staffed? Budget cuts across the state bureaucracy during and after the recession have reduced staffing at virtually every state institution. The prisons weren't immune to those staff reductions. Continuing emphasis in the General Assembly on lean budgeting may have made violent, dangerous conditions in the state's prisons a permanent condition. even if the prison system achieves its unlikely goal of full staffing. Although lawmakers approved salary increases for officers at maximum security prisons, the pay now averages $38,000 a year. That's not great money for a job in which guards are almost continuously in the presence of violent criminals, many of whom are prone to a rage that incarceration only exacerbates. North Carolina's guards still earn $8,000 a year less than the national average for that job. How does North Carolina change that? The only clear option is to spend more money. It's clear that even if they were fully staffed, our prisons still wouldn't have enough guards to ensure safety. If lawmakers did some benchmarking, they'd find that the states that pay better money have close to full staffing in their prisons. In Pennsylvania and California, about 3% of the guard positions are open at any given time. The vacancy rate is half that in New Jersey. Or there is one other approach, but it isn't one that will sit well with the lock them up and lose the key crowd. We could stop sending so many people to jail for such long terms. Mandatory sentencing guidelines are one part of the problem. We're not suggesting that violent criminals should get free passes out of jail, but there's plenty of room for change in the way we deal with non-violent offenders. But even if prison populations are reduced, those that are behind bars will still be a pretty violent lot, and better pay will go a long way to attracting people willing to guard them. This is one of the places in government where we're going to get exactly what we pay for. Let's see, we're going to have to go and find the... Read whatever you got there. You got something little? Yep, that'll work. Yeah, that's good.
Police chief says gang unit needed. Fayetteville Police Chief Gina Hawkins announced plans Monday night to form a gang unit and reorganize the Fayetteville Police Department in a number of ways at the City Council meeting. We need a gang unit to address our violent crime, Hawkins 49 told the members of the City Council. This is a serious issue we need to address. Hawkins released crime statistics for January through September of this year and compared them to last year's crime numbers during the same time period. Some of the key comparisons were: there have been 23 homicides this year versus 25 homicides during the same time period last year. There have been 84 rapes reported to police this year versus 85 rapes reported to police during the same time period last year. Robberies have decreased by 5.3% and aggravated assaults have increased by 4% compared to the same time frame last year. Violent crimes, which are homicides, rapes, robberies, and aggravated assaults, increased by 1.5%. Property crimes, which included burglaries, larcenies, and motor vehicle thefts, decreased by 2.7%. Police saw an increase of 127% in the amount of heroin they seized this year compared with last year. City police officers saved the lives of 75 people this year using Narcan or naloxone, which is an opioid antidote. Last year, they saved 35 people during the same time period. There were 39 people who died of narcotics overdoses this year versus 19 during the same time period of last year. After presenting the crime statistics to the City Council, Hawkins made some suggestions based on the crime statistics. A number of City Council members expressed surprise to learn that the city did not have a gang unit. Hawkins explained that the gang unit would be made up of officers already working for the police department. Hawkins also suggested forming a community affairs office to increase engagement with residents, creating a chaplaincy program to help police officers, creating a new initiative to combat opioid abuse, and creating a Citizens Police Academy program to educate residents about the police department. We're looking at how we can direct our organizations to put our people in the right places, Hawkins said.
Okay, and guess what time it is? There you go.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. By making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina radio reading service in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number at 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts today are
Tina Beatty
and Jessica Bullock, and we are proud to serve you today.
Well, it's 11 o'clock, and I have to hold on a minute because someone has to come and switch over the computer, don't they? Do you know what to do? I bet Jessica knows what to do. Tina doesn't.
What do I click?
Yep.
That's it? Smart girl. Okay, here are the obituaries. First, we're going to read the death notices. And the following deaths have been reported. Upcoming editions of the Fayetteville Observer will have more complete obituary information. From Cumberland County, Felton J. Capel, 64, or Capel, of Fayetteville, Weissman Mortuary. I think it's Capel, isn't it? Jerome H. Askew, Sr., 87, of Fayetteville, Weissman Mortuary. And Faye V. Crawford, 52, of Fayetteville, Weissman Mortuary. And from the region, Mincy G. Johnson, 70, of Lillington, O. Quinn Peebles Phillips Funeral Home and Crematory in Lillington, Jermaine Thomas, 44, of Broadway, Dafford Funeral Home in Dunn, Ray C. Norris, 56, of Red Springs, L.E. Floyd Funeral Home, and June J. Grant, 68, of Raleigh, formerly of Laurel Hill, McFatter Funeral Home. Okie dokie, and away we go. From Fayetteville, the Reverend Lawrence E. Lugar, 90, died November the 10th at his home in Fayetteville, North Carolina. After retiring to Fayetteville, North Carolina, he continued to serve churches as he was needed on an interim basis, a total of 7 charges. Looking back up here, he was numerous conference committees. He was a Methodist, and he served on the board of directors for the Methodist Children's Home. A memorial service will be held Saturday, November 18th at 2 p.m. at Salem United Methodist Church in Eastover. Visitation at the church from 1 to 1:45, and online condolences may be made at sullivanshighland.com, and services are entrusted to Sullivan's Highland Funeral Service of Fayetteville, North Carolina. From Fayetteville, Charles William Smalls, Jr., 78, of Fayetteville, died Saturday, November the 11th. Funeral is Saturday at 11 a.m. at Reeves Funeral Home in their chapel. Viewing will be at Reeves Funeral Home on Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and burial will be in Sandhill State Veterans Cemetery at a later date. Reeves Funeral Home of Hope Mills in charge there. From Fayetteville, Samika Yvette Conyers, 37, of Fayetteville, died Thursday, November 9th. The funeral will be Wednesday, which is tomorrow, at 4 p.m. at Weissman Mortuary Chapel, and viewing will be at the funeral home Tuesday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Weissman Mortuary in charge of arrangements. From Fayetteville, Akash R. Talati, 41, of Fayetteville, died Sunday, November 12th. The funeral is Thursday, 1 p.m., Rogers and Breese Funeral Home Chapel, Rogers and Breese in charge of arrangements. From Fayetteville, Barbara Olcott, 86, of Fayetteville, died Thursday, November 2nd. The memorial will be held Sunday, 2 p.m. at Westminster Presbyterian Church, and Jernigan Warren Funeral Home is in charge of arrangements. From the region and elsewhere, from Red Springs, Theodore Martin McCall of Red Springs passed away peacefully Sunday, November 12th at his home. Martin was born on Thursday, January the 16th, 1941. Receiving of friends and family will take place from 12:30 to 2:30 on Wednesday, November 15th at Philadelphia Presbyterian Church in Red Springs. The funeral service will be at 2:30, also at Philadelphia Presbyterian Church, and burial will follow. Service has been entrusted to Bowles Funeral Home in Red Springs. In lieu of flowers, the family has requested contributions be made to the Philadelphia Presbyterian Church Cemetery Fund. From Front Royal, Virginia, Jeffrey Howard Norton, 41, of Front Royal, Virginia, died Monday, November 6. The funeral is Thursday at 2 p.m. Calvary Missionary Methodist Church, 158 Calvary Church Road, Olivia. Visitation is at Adcock Funeral Home on Wednesday from 6 to 8 p.m. with burial at Calvary Missionary Methodist Church Cemetery, Adcock Funeral Home and Crematory in charge of arrangements. That column down there, the last column. Yeah.
Brayford, Miss Ruby B. McLean, age 71, of 529 Oak Ridge Drive, Brayford, North Carolina, departed this life on Thursday, November 12, 2017. Funeral services will be held on Wednesday, November 15th at 1 p.m. in the Wiseman Mortuary Chapel. Burial, Port Indian Town Gap in Lebanon, Pennsylvania. There will be a viewing on Wednesday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. at the funeral home. New York, Michael Anthony Stubbs, 51, New York, died Thursday, November 9, 2017. Funeral will be held Wednesday at 2 p.m. at the Reedy Creek Missionary Baptist Church, Laurinburg. Viewing, Purcell Funeral Home, Chapel, Laurinburg, Tuesday, 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. The burial, Hillside Memorial Park, Laurinburg. Purcell Funeral Home, Laurinburg. Christmas, Florida, Connie Nance Adams, 70, of Christmas, Florida, formerly of Bladenboro, died Thursday, November 9, 2017. Funeral, Friday at 1 p.m., Richardson Baptist Church. Visitation, Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home, Thursday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Burial, Cemetery, Bladenboro, Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home. Raleigh, Jackson Patterson, 96, of Raleigh, died Friday, November 3, 2017. Graveside, Tuesday, 1 p.m. Burial, Roseboro Cemetery, Roseboro. Butler Funeral Home of Stedman. Clinton, Miss Lisa Troetta Peterson, 60, of 810 Sampson Street. Clinton died Wednesday, November 8, 2017. Funeral will be held Thursday at noon. New Life Outreach Ministries, Clinton. Visitation at the funeral home Wednesday, noon to 5 p.m. Burial, Sandhill Cemetery, Clinton. Rose Funeral Home of Clinton. Broadway, Mary Magdalene Wilson, 70, of Broadway, died Saturday, November 11, 2017. Funeral is Tuesday at 2 p.m. Smith Funeral Home, Chapel, Broadway, North Carolina. Visitation, Smith Funeral Home, Tuesday, 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. Burial, Broadway Town Cemetery, Smith Funeral Home, Broadway. Whiteville, died, registered 61, of Whiteville, died Sunday, November 12, 2017. Graveside, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Macedonia Free Will Baptist Church Cemetery. Visitation, Peacock Funeral Home, Tuesday from 5:30 to 8 p.m. Peacock Funeral Home and Crematory. Laurinburg, Kenneth Ken West, Laurinburg. Kenneth Ken West, 70, of Laurinburg, died Sunday, November 12, 2017. Graveside, Wednesday, 2 p.m. Lumbee Memorial Gardens. Visitation, Richard Bowles Funeral Service, Tuesday, 6 to 8 p.m. Richard Bowles Funeral Service. Rebecca June Warren of White Lake, died 71, died Monday, November 13, 2017. Funeral is Friday at 6 p.m. Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home. Visitation, Bladen Gaskins Funeral Home, Friday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Burial, Stansburg Cemetery.
Okay. That it? All of them? Okay. Then it must be time for Billy Graham. Here's the question for Billy Graham today. Our church has a new pastor, and he wants us to spend more money on advertising and social media so we'll attract more people. I'm not sure I approve, because it seems like it's not a very spiritual approach to things. After all, it's not a company trying to sell something. Am I wrong? And it's signed Mrs. F.P. Here's the answer. I'm thankful for your pastor's vision to reach people in your community who may not yet know Christ. I hope you'll have the same vision. The Bible says, how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? That's from Romans chapter 10, verse 14. It is unspiritual to use, is it unspiritual to use advertising and social media to tell about your church and encourage people to become part of it? No, not necessarily. Not if it's done in the right way. In our own ministry, we use every means we can to tell people about the gospel and inform them of our evangelistic activities. The Bible records that the first Christians used every way they could to tell others about Christ, from personal witness and house-to-house visitation to literature and public preaching. At the same time, never forget that God's work must be done in God's way, and God's way includes our prayers and our total dependence on God the Holy Spirit. Unless we pray and trust God to work our efforts, including our advertising, we'll be fruitless. The Bible says, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord. That's from Zechariah 4, verse 6. Pray for your pastor that God will guide him and give him great wisdom as he leads your congregation. Pray also for your church that God will use it to reach out in love to those who do not yet know Christ. Time for, Dear Abby.
Dear Abby, discovery of pregnancy test surprises live-in girlfriends. Dear Abby, I'm a lesbian. My girlfriend and I have been dating for 6 months. We have an awesome relationship and are very happy and open with each other. I know she has dated guys in the past, so have I. So I'm not worried about that nonsense at all, but I recently found something of hers that surprised me. It was a container of pregnancy tests and one was missing with a Plan B pill alongside of it. I'm not mad about it because I know stuff happens, but I would rather that it not happen in our apartment. I'm tempted to bring it up, but I would honestly rather not discuss it at all. I just don't want anything happening in the apartment. Would it be weird if I just threw the stuff out without telling her, or should I say something? But if she wants to keep it, I don't think that would be the case, but it would start a fight because as a female couple, we obviously don't need a pregnancy test. I know I'm overthinking this and I could use some advice on how to handle this uncomfortable situation. From Surprised About It. Dear Surprise, I'm glad you asked. Do not quietly throw out those pregnancy tests or the medication. I don't know what kind of arrangement you have with your live-in girlfriend, but if fidelity was part of the agreement, you should absolutely talk with her about what you found. It does not have to degenerate into a fight, but it's important that you know why she feels the need to be in an intimate relationship, regardless of gender, with someone else. Dear Abby, my husband and I have a wonderful life and much to be thankful for, but we have no children and are usually alone on Thanksgiving and Christmas. Everyone makes such a fuss about sharing these holidays with loved ones, but I've become depressed during this season. I do volunteer work on these holidays, but still feel sad and like everyone else in the country is having a better time than I am. Any suggestions? From Not So Jolly in Arizona. Dear Not So Jolly, you must be a new reader of my column, or you would know that every year around holiday time I receive letters from people like you, expressing that rather than feeling joyful and elated, they feel depressed and deprived. Some of it may be the result of the incessant marketing of these holidays, which gives the impression that everyone is having a grand old time, sipping cider, stuffing themselves with turkey, and caroling under the windows of their neighbors. An antidote for your holiday blues might be to do more than volunteer. Why don't you and your husband plan to do something special to treat yourselves, rather than stay home feeling like everyone else is enjoying themselves? Choose a different destination each year to visit and learn about, or invite some friends or acquaintances to join you at home. There's a saying that misery loves company, and in your case, company might be the solution to your problem. Readers can write to Dear Abby at dearabbey.com or P.O. Box 69440, Los Angeles, California 90069. Universal Euclid.
Okay, horoscope. Born today, and we don't know if we've missed you. If we have, we're very sorry. But this is your personal horoscope. Born today, you are one of the most magnetic individuals born under your sign, as you are likely to attract other individuals into your orbit at a relatively steady rate throughout your lifetime. It's not something you're likely to tire of anytime soon. And the rest of you Scorpios, you'll want to steer clear of anyone who is eager to pass the blame today, lest you be caught in a situation that is no good for anyone. Sagittarius, you'll have the chance to review one or two recent decisions today. Look at what you've done carefully, and you'll spot a hidden error. Capricorn, it's important that you remain on an even keel throughout the day. Don't let rough seas toss you this way and that. Trim your sails. What I've read here. Aquarius, you can solve a tricky problem by looking at it from an unusual point of view. Upside down appears right side up. Well, okay. Pisces, you may require assistance today to do something that was easy for you only yesterday. A sudden change has knocked you off your feet somewhere. Aries, you mustn't let someone else's behavior keep you from doing what you know is right. He or she will stay grounded while you are able to soar. Taurus, you'll have the chance to speak up for someone who is unable to speak up for him or herself. Do your best to remain objective. Gemini, an old friend reminds you of what was important not so long ago, and you'll wonder why certain things have changed. Okay. Cancer, you can regain what was lost some time ago. Figure out what works for you, but don't insist that anyone else follow your lead. Leo, the freedom you are after you can enjoy today, but only after you release someone else from any restrictions you might have previously imposed. Virgo, you'll prove yourself up to the task that someone throws at you today, but that doesn't mean you'll ever want to tackle it again. And last one today, last but not least, Libra, your instincts are telling you that the time is right to reveal yourself. But in what way exactly? Only you can answer that question.
Repeal and replace the tax code. The Republicans' tax bill would somewhat improve the existing revenue system that once caused Mitch Daniels, former head of the Office of Management and Budget, former Indiana governor, to say, wouldn't it be nice to have a tax code that looked as though it had been designed on purpose? Today's bill, which is 429 pages and is apt to grow, is an implausible instrument of simplification, and it would worsen the tax code's already substantial contribution to moral hazard. Economists use that phrase to denote circumstances in which incentives are for perverse behavior. Today's tax code is such a circumstance, and the Republican bill would exacerbate this by expanding the $1,000 child credit to $1,600 with an additional $300 family credit for each parent and non-child dependent, and by doubling the standard deduction to $12,000 for individuals and $24,000 for married couples. These measures would increase the number of persons not paying income taxes and would further decrease the percent of income taxes revenue paid by low-income earners. Already 62% of American households pay more in payroll taxes than income taxes. The bottom 50% of earners supply less than 3% of income tax revenues. 45% of American households pay no income tax, either because they earn too little or because they qualify for enough exemptions and credits to erase their liability. 60% pay nothing or less than 5% of their income. 40% of earners are net recipients from the income tax because they qualify for refundable tax credits. All this means that an already large, and if the Republican bill passes soon to be larger, American majority has a vanishingly small incentive to restrain the growth of a government that they are not paying for through its largest revenue source. These facts might be the results of defensible tax and social policies. They should, however, be discomfiting to those remaining conservatives. They are on the endangered species list, who dispute Dick Cheney's notion that Reagan-approved deficits don't matter. Deficits matter for the political as well. Actually, even more. Their economic effects. Deficits make big government cheap, enabling the political class to charge taxpayers rather less than $1 for every $1 government benefits is spent. When the Bush-Cheney administration managed the last large tax cut, the publicity-held national debt was 33% of GDP. Today is 75%. Today's Republican bill, drafted in the aftermath of the failure to repeal and replace Obamacare, is supposed to demonstrate to the party's Trumpian base that congressional majorities matter and must extend. Mark Meadows, our Republican North Carolina chairman of the Conservative House of Freedom Caucus, he said, if we have a whole bunch of wins won on major, if we had a whole bunch of wins on major items up to this point, we would perhaps be a little bit more deliberate in our negotiations. I think the answer is yes. But the facts about participation in the income tax mean that the bill is unlikely to assuage the injured feelings of core Trump supporters, understood as downscale white working class voters who supposedly are seething because they are not benefiting enough from the burdensome government. They might have valid grievances, but not ones that can be addressed by income tax rate reductions for individuals. Payroll tax reductions will be another matter. This year's best tax bill, which Representative Galot, Republican of Virginia, has introduced 6 times since 2006, is 4 pages long and contains fewer words than the new Republican bill has pages. It could be titled the What You Wish For Mitch Daniels Act. It is entitled with almost unprecedented accuracy the Tax Code Termination Act. It would nullify the existing 4 million word code as of December 31st, 2021, and require that by July 4th of that year it must be replaced by a new one, which would necessarily be one designed on purpose. Sorry, that was a struggle read for me.
That's alright. You did good.
It's boring. Struggle.
Okay, here is an article about rape, robbery, and kidnap charges. 3 men are accused of rape in Cumberland County after a woman posted a Facebook Live video describing her alleged assault. The Cumberland County Sheriff's Office made the arrest Sunday after corroborating details of the woman's account, a spokesman said. Sheriff's detectives in the Human Trafficking Unit were notified by Fayetteville Police of the alleged crime Friday. The detectives then contacted the victim, who had posted on Facebook about a week after the November 2nd incident. She was not sure where else to turn, so she turned to social media and told her story to Facebook Live, the Sheriff's Office said in a statement. The woman told detectives that she had posted an ad for companionship online. She went to a home on Carbine Street off Cumberland Road near Boone Trail to meet a man who responded to the advertisement. The man took her to a bedroom where 2 other men were waiting, the Sheriff's Office said. The men displayed handguns and demanded money, then made her remove her clothing and perform sex acts, detectives said. Detectives charged James Haywood III, 21, of the 2100 block of Lady Slipper Drive, Jason Taekwon Hammonds, 18, of the 2200 block of Carbine Street, and Brandon Mackenzie, 17, of the 5600 block of Hardwick Lane. All three were charged with first-degree forcible rape, robbery with a dangerous weapon, first-degree kidnapping, and felony conspiracy. Well, you'd think I could read better than this, wouldn't you? Charged with first-degree kidnapping and felony conspiracy. Hammonds and Mackenzie have an additional charge of first-degree forcible sex offense. Hammonds also is accused of possession of a firearm by a felon. Hayward's bail was set at $1.5 million. Bail was set at $2 million for Hammonds and Mackenzie. The Sheriff's Office is asking anyone with information on this case or others to call 910-323-1500.
Lumber River included in flood study. 4 state rivers, including the Lumber River in Robeson County, will be studied to help prevent future flooding, Governor Roy Cooper's office said on Monday. Communities throughout eastern North Carolina are rebuilding from Hurricane Matthew, and we want to learn all we can from these floods so we can better prepare for the future, Cooper said in a news release. This effort will guide our recovery from the last storm and make us better equipped to weather the next one. For the Lumber River, North Carolina Emergency Management, working with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, will lead a basin-wide study to be completed in spring of 2018. The study will recommend flood mitigation strategies. North Carolina Emergency Management recently completed a study on flooding around the Lumber River levee during Hurricane Matthew, the governor's office said. It recommended strategies including the installation of floodgates where there are openings around the levee. The results of the study are expected to be shared with the city soon, the governor's office said. Along with the Lumber River, the Tar, Neuse, and Cashew rivers will be studied, the governor's office said. Advisory councils are being established for the Lumber, Neuse, and Tar rivers.
Okay. This is from Spring Lake. Voters in this northwestern Cumberland County municipality decided that the re-election of the town's government's old guard was in the best interest of their future. Larry Dobbins, wrapping up his first term on the Spring Lake Board of Aldermen, defeated 2 candidates without any political experience to win the mayoral race, according to unofficial results. With all 3 precincts reporting, Dobbins, Spring Lake's mayor pro tem, tallied 368 votes to runner-up Chaz Sampson's 268. I feel good. In fact, I feel excellent, the 71-year-old retired educator said from the lobby of the Spring Lake Courtyard by Marriott, where some of the candidates and their supporters had gathered for election results. I tried to run a clean race by the books, Dobbins added. It was the difference between us that voters needed to hear. Tara Wright DeLoach tallied 19 votes. This is what the town wants, a disappointed Sampson said, before all 3 precincts had reported. That's the democratic process and we support it. In the race for the 5-member Board of Aldermen, the 3 incumbents topped the field of 8 candidates. James O'Gara, based on the unofficial results, won re-election as the top vote-getter with 430 votes. Incumbent Frederica Sutherland placed second with 429, and James Christian remained on the board with 399. The board's last 2 spots went to newcomers Jackie Jackson with 352 votes and Sonia Kublo with 328 votes. Violina Hassamuddin finished 6th in the race with 292 votes, followed by Stan McQueen with 260 and Byron Blumenfeld with 216. Both the mayor and the members of the Board of Aldermen served 2-year terms. Chris Ray served as mayor the last 6 years, but he announced earlier this year that he was not seeking that he was not seeking re-election you devote more attention to a new assignment in the National Guard and to spend more time with his family. It must be time for me to go home or something, I don't know.
Alleged ISIS recruiter pleads guilty to fraud. Raleigh, an Eastover resident, FBI says, was a recruiter for Islamic State forces, pleaded guilty Monday in federal court to federal fraud and tax charges, said agency spokesman Don Connolly. Hussein Becher Gall, 43, who was born in Tunisia, pleaded guilty to lying on his application for U.S. citizenship and 2 counts of filing false tax returns, Connolly said. He is facing up to 16 years in prison, Connolly said, and is scheduled to be sentenced February 20th at the Terry Sanford Federal Building and Courthouse in Raleigh. Gual admitted to lying about his support for a terrorist organization on his citizenship application, and he also married several women in an attempt to obtain citizenship. The tax charges are for not reporting all of his income and for improper use of the Earned Income Tax Credit, published report said. Gual was living in Cumberland County in April 2014. The FBI was first alerted to his activities through screenshots of his Facebook account. The account was in Arabic name and immediately appeared to be in support of the well-known terrorist group, the Islamic State in Iraq and Al-Sham with ISIS, and affidavit says. Investigators continued to track his social media accounts, one of which included a photo of a man in a convenience store holding a handmade sign that reads American support for the Islamic State in Arabic, according to Raleigh television station WRAL. Below in English it said ISIS, North Carolina, USA. That same photo later appeared in a propaganda video released on an ISIS YouTube channel. The FBI used a variety of sources to investigate Gall's actions and document several times he exposed ISIS beliefs. On one occasion, Gall expressed support for the ISIS practice of beheading people believed to be spies. Gall declared support for the Islamic State and said he would send money to support terrorism. He was arrested in August. The FBI confirmed that Gall worked at the Snack Attack convenience store on Bragg Boulevard in Fayetteville. Agents were able to locate the man in the photo and interview him, which prompted surveillance on Gall. An informant said Gall bragged he had sent as many as 13 people overseas to support ISIS activities. Gall came to the United States in January 2001 on a tourist visa, which expired at the end of February. On October 16th that year, he married, and the woman was listed as a sponsor on a petition for an alien relative that was filed with federal authorities. They divorced in 2006. The petition was approved in 2007, and a notice was mailed to Gall, but it was returned marked undeliverable. He married again and filed a petition for permanent residence that was approved in 2010, and Gall divorced his wife. Gall was accused of falsifying income tax returns by giving fake information for his adjusted gross income in 2015 and 2016. The affidavit said for the 2 years combined, Gall reported his adjusted gross income to be $24,765. Documents said he filed to pay a combined total of $71,297 for the same 2-year period.
Okay. This is the Southeast North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a non-profit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the SENCRRS in mind. Our P.O. Box number is 35029, Fayetteville 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call 910-672-1600 or toll free 1-844-709-5656. And your radio hosts are
Jessica Bullock
and Tina Beatty, and we are proud to serve you today. There are no more local articles. Okay, all the rest of these are they're not even. I don't think they're even state. there at Washington and things like that. You go through and look for something. I'm going to read another story out of this magazine, which is a very interesting story, really. It is. Surprised the heck out of me. It's called Kinship Rekindled. From the living room of Kester Sink's house, the outside world is all corn and sunshine. A summer green yard stretches out above the acres upon acres of fields, and a black lab named Bunker rambles past the parked tractors and old farm equipment to find suitable shade in the barn. A few moments ago, a crowd of about 30 gathered on Kester's front porch, most of them family, albeit once or twice removed, and considered their roots. Like the 200 or so people gathered across the highway at the Mayberry campground, and some 1,500 others scattered throughout the country, these folks come from here, this rolling farmland in Mount Airy. But for now, everyone has cleared off the porch, and Kester sits with his daughters and granddaughter in the house he has occupied for 70 years, ever since he returned from World War II and married Adelaide Bunker. Kester, a spry 93-year-old, describes this house, built in 1857, as a typical primitive farmhouse, except, he goes on, and this is a big except, that the Siamese twins had been all over the world and could afford these big pane windows and louvers over the doors. Yes, I really did say Siamese twins, folks. This house, and about everything as far as the eye can see, was bought with circus money in the 19th century. There's no way of knowing this from looking, of course. The whole of the property appears as if from a portrait of idyllic rural America. A big red barn, a wide porch fronting the white farmhouse, oceans of corn swaying in the breeze in the background. But the truth is that everything springing forth from here, the people at the campground and the centuries of corn and seed and hogs, owes its existence to two men forever attached, Chang and Eng Bunker, the original Siamese twins. At first glance, none of this makes sense. These 200 acres of rural North Carolina belong to conjoined twins who were of Chinese descent but were born in the Kingdom of Siam, now Thailand, in 1811. Chang and Eng arrived in this land after a life that was less a winding road than a jagged highway of hairpin turns. Their childhood was tragic and impoverished. Their father died when they were young, most of their siblings died not long after, and the conjoined twins spent much of their time selling duck eggs to help their mother make ends meet. Then at age 17, they were taken away by an American sea captain and a British merchant who saw opportunity in their attached form. Money was given to their mother, and they set sail. The captain, Abel Coffin, took them to England and the United States, where they performed, and doctors poked and prodded them. Passers-by challenged them to games of chess. The most extraordinary thing about them, it seemed, was that they were so ordinary. Two whole men connected below the chest. When they turned 21, they took control of their fortunes, saying goodbye to Captain Coffin. By the time they were 28, they were rich, famous, and world-traveled. And so it was in 1839 that Chang and Eng, two separate men bound together by a band of skin and cartilage, decided to settle down. Now, as an aside, nowadays, that would have been a really simple separation, wouldn't it, if it's only skin and cartilage? Because sometimes they share brains or hearts or whatever. But anyway, they could have gone anywhere, returned home to Siam, sailed off to any European city, but they chose western North Carolina, beginning in Wilkes County and eventually settling in Mount Airy. They put down roots in this spot, what is now the property of Kester Sink, and assimilated into antebellum Southern life. They disappeared from the public eye. Understanding that Chang and Eng lost their family before they were adults, and understanding that for more than a decade they were carted from town to town, labeled as freaks and monsters, perhaps it makes the most sense of all that they decided to escape into a quiet life of farming in the shade of the Blue Ridge Mountains. With the wealth they'd amassed from touring, they bought acres of fertile farmland and slaves to work the farm. They built a house with extra-wide doorways and furniture, and they gained in Mount Airy what they had lost as children along the Mekong River, a family. The brothers married a pair of Quaker sisters, Sarah and Adelaide Yates, from nearby Wilkes County, and over the next 2 decades, Chang fathered 10 children and Eng 11. When I was a child, Kester's daughter Alex Sink says, as we passed the corn crib behind the house, I used to go up and down the streets of Mount Airy, and I'd go into some random store and someone would say, "Aren't you one of those bunkers?" She believes that the shape of her eyes gave away the Chinese heritage of her great-grandfather Chang. And even today, people introduced themselves to me and said, "You look like a bunker." Alex, a former gubernatorial candidate and chief financial officer for the state of Florida, has come to Mount Airy this weekend to spend time with others who may carry hints of those same Chinese features in their faces, certainly in their DNA. But for Alex, coming back to the land of her forefathers is always coming home to the house she grew up in. As we walk, Kester hollers from the house that we should look in the original meat smokehouse. We duck inside and then step into the shop with Alex's daughter and sister, Lexi Crawford and Dottie Sykes, to pick through Chang and Eng's old toys. Lexi, a pediatric resident in Washington, D.C., brushes off her mom's scolding that she should have worn shoes. "Mom, I grew up like this." Dottie and Alex roam this entire farm as girls, but they admit that no one talked much then about the Siamese twins who first settled here. Nearly a century after Chang and Eng's deaths, taboos lingered, not only for the strangers of conjoined twins living normal, married lives, but also the fact that these marriages were interracial in the antebellum South. For Dottie and Alex's children, their ancestry was mostly discussed in whispers. Today, however, the pride in coming from these talented, complex family men spreads out wide. Descendants have traveled here from across the country, and Thailand's ambassador to the United States, Pisan Manawapat, is here to celebrate the legacy of Chang and Eng. In downtown Mount Airy, the Siamese twins exhibit fills a room in the Andy Griffith Playhouse. Across Southeast Asia, a musical about the twins has toured in recent years. These guys were brilliant, Hester says, as I run my hand along the wood paneling back inside his house. Kester, forever astonished by the sturdiness and ingenuity of this place, isn't a descendant, but he married one. Adelaide, Alex and Dottie's mother, who died in 1968. Still, his appreciation for Chang and Eng's lives shows in his care for this land and house. He has farmed these acres for 7 decades, developing his own hybrid seed corn and nurturing a long-lived affinity for pigs. "I got addicted to raising hogs," he says, and he has spent that same amount of time restoring this 150-year-old house, rebuilding anything rotten and uncovering anything hidden so that the original wooden glass would show. Excuse me. Now Kester sits here while his daughters and grandchildren come back home, while hundreds of other people, all shaped by 2 misshapen men who found respite here, find their way back to this land too. Today there are no hushed voices, only an ever-growing family, wide, abundant land, and an old house still standing tall. What a lovely article. It was written by Jeremy B. Jones. So, I'm glad I bought this magazine today, folks. So you don't have to listen to some more boring news from Washington.
Puerto Rico seeks $94 billion in federal aid. Washington. Puerto Rico's governor on Monday asked the federal government for $94.4 billion as the island struggles to recover from the damage inflicted by Hurricane Maria, which with much of the U.S. territory without power and thousands still homeless. Ricardo Rosello also urged Congress to adopt a tax overhaul plan that addresses Puerto Rico's specific needs to avoid an exodus of the companies that currently generate 42% of the island's gross domestic product. The government said during a news conference that he will formally make his request to the White House and Congress along with a report with a detailed assessment of damage. The governor is seeking $46 billion to restore housing through the Community Development Block Grant Program, $30 billion within the Federal Emergency Management Agency to recover critical infrastructure, and $17.9 billion in other federal grant programs for long-term recovery. So far, Congress has approved nearly $5 billion in aid for Puerto Rico, where Hurricane Maria caused widespread damage on September 20th in the worst blackout in U.S. history. The request from Puerto Rico surpasses $61 billion that Texas is pursuing from the federal government for infrastructure improvements. This is a transformation moment in the U.S. in the history of Puerto Rico, Rosello wrote to President Donald Trump. "We recognize that your leadership, along with that of leaders from both parties, will be essential to our recovery and the future economic and fiscal health of the island." Rosello announced that his team will create a portal that will allow the public to track the status of recovery and funds. That is part of an effort to placate concerns after the Puerto Rico Electric Power Authority selected Whitefish Energy Holdings to help rebuild the island's electrical system. Even though it had just 2 employees when the hurricane struck, the contract was canceled on October 29th amid bipartisan criticism from members of Congress and a request by Rosello to avoid the deal.
Okay. What do we have? Well, we've got almost 15 minutes here. Now, there's some more things in this magazine. Huh?
This is a small one.
Is it? Okay.
Talking about Hurricane Harvey.
Okay. Harvey's biblical rainfall getting more likely. This is from Washington. The chances of a hurricane flooding parts of Texas, like Harvey did, have soared 6-fold in just 25 years because of global warming, and will likely triple once again before the end of the century, a new study says. Well, that's scary, isn't it? My word. Study author Kerry Emanuel, a meteorology professor and hurricane expert at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, found that what was once an extremely rare event, 20 inches of rain over a large area of Texas, could soon be almost common. Oh my. From 1981 to 2000, the probability of 20 inches of rain happening somewhere over a large chunk of Texas was 1 in 100 or even less. Now it's 6 in 100, and by 2081, those odds will be 18 in 100, he said. The changes in probabilities are because of global warming, Emanuel said. The study was released Monday in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Emanuel said he hurried the study to help Houston officials think about what conditions they should consider when they rebuild. Texas state climatologist John Nielsen Gammon said he was struck by the potential for much higher rainfall and Emanuel's simulations predicted for the future, and how important it is the design of critical structures like dams and nuclear facilities. If the worst case scenario precipitation is getting worse, as Kerry's study and other evidence implies, that safety margin is shrinking, Nielsen Gammon said in an email, highlighting Emanuel's results that also show the worst case storms becoming wetter and more common. Gabriel Vecchi, a climate scientist at Princeton who wasn't part of the study, said the study confirms what scientists have already thought, that the most extreme rainfall events will become more likely as the planet warms. My goodness. These results highlight the importance of finding ways to incorporate our understanding of climate change in long-term urban planning, stormwater management, and in flood mapping, Vecchi said in an email. To do the study, Emmanuel had to use some innovative modeling techniques. Global climate models used for future warming studies aren't detailed enough to simulate hurricanes. Hurricane models don't say anything about the larger climate, so Emmanuel combined the models and then created thousands and thousands of fictional storm seedlings to see what would happen. Emmanuel's calculations used the 20-inch, half a meter, rainfall total because that was the initial figure discussed as the storm was dying down. Later, measurements showed that Harvey's rain was far heavier and far rarer than initially reported. After Emmanuel had started his work, records showed Harvey's Houston-wide rainfall ended up as close to 33 inches, 84 centimeters, and individual areas peaked bits. I've forgotten where I am. Emmanuel called these numbers biblical. I'm about to fall asleep here. She's laughing at me. I don't blame her. And let's start this bit again. After Emmanuel had started his work, records showed Harvey's Houston-wide rainfall ended up close to 33 inches, and in individual areas peaked at 60 inches. Good grief. Emmanuel called these numbers biblical. By the standards of the average climate during 1981 to 2000, Harvey's rainfall in Houston was biblical in the sense that it likely occurred around once since the Old Testament was written, Emmanuel's study said. While several scientists praised the study's technique, Christopher Landsea, Science Operations Chief at the National Hurricane Center, had some reservations. He said Emmanuel's results don't fit with other climate change model projections, which do show higher rainfall totals, but also a decrease in the number of storms. And that's it from me. Find something to read, darling. We can do the TV soon, but we still got about 3-4 minutes before we do the television schedule. Oh, it's so exciting, isn't it? All of it. That's a little one. What that is. What's this? This is a
Trump silent on deterring drug war killings. Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has sanctioned a bloody drug war that features extrajudicial killing. He called Barack Obama a son of a whore. This week, he boasted that he murdered a man with his own hands. All that went unmentioned in public by President Donald Trump and the leaders held talks Monday in the Philippines. Reporters saw the beginning of the leaders' bilateral meeting during which Trump praised Duterte's hospitality, the organization of the summit he was hosting, and even Manila's weather. Trump said nothing about human rights, and both leaders ignored shouted questions about the violent drug crackdown. The two men also shared a laugh in the meeting when Duterte called reporters spies. Later, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said that the 40-minute meeting focused on ISIS, illegal drugs, and trade. Human rights, she added, briefly came up in the context of the Philippines' fight against illegal drugs. She did not say if Trump was critical of the violence. That appeared to conflict with the Philippines' version of the meeting. Harry Roque, a spokesman for Duterte, said there was no mention of human rights, there was no mention of the extra-legal killings, there was only a rather lengthy discussion of the Philippine war on drugs, President Duterte doing most of the explaining. Breaking with his presidential predecessors, Trump has largely abandoned publicity pressing foreign leaders on human rights instead of showing a willingness to embrace an international strongmen for strategic gain. He has cozied up to autocrats such as Saudi Arabia's King Salman, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. And earlier in this trip to Asia, he made no mention of human rights during multiple appearances in Beijing with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Trump seems very comfortable with strongmen. It's not just that he won't criticize or deter. I wouldn't be surprised if he patted him on the back, said Mike Chimoy, senior fellow at U.S.-China Institute at the University of Southern California before the meeting. This hurts war on drugs has alarmed human rights advocates around the world who say it is allowed police officers and vigilantes to ignore due process and to take justice into their own hands. Government officials estimate that well over 3,000 people, mostly drug users and dealers, have died in the ongoing crackdown. Human rights groups believe that the victim total is far higher, perhaps closer to 9,000.
Okay. I'll start on the television schedule, and won't go too fast. Maybe I'll stay late. Let's see. I didn't sleep very well last night. It's some excuse that is. It's just because I'm an old lady. That's what it is. Okay, ABC. There is CBS. There's Fox. And where's NBC? There it is. They don't put this together very well in the paper anymore, so you don't know what you're looking for. Okay, on ABC tonight, The Middle at 8, and Fresh Off the Boat at 8:30, and those are both new. Blackish at 9, and The Mayor at 9:30, both new. And 10 o'clock, Kevin Probably Saves the World, and that's new. On CBS, NCIS at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock Bull, 10 o'clock NCIS New Orleans, and those are all new. What's this one? Fox. Lethal Weapon at 8, The Mick at 9, Brooklyn Nine-Nine at 9:30, and then Fox News at 10. And then what have we here? NBC. I wish they'd mark this better. The Voice, that starts at 8, that's new. This Is Us, that's new, at 9. And Law and Order True Crime, The Menendez Murders, that's at 10 o'clock. WUNC, or PBS, Finding Your Roots at 8 o'clock, that's new. And then the Vietnam War. This is, they're rerunning that series that they made about the Vietnam War, and I'll tell you what, it was so well made and so interesting. And this particular episode is about American troops withdrawing from Vietnam. On A&E tonight, 8 o'clock Leah Remini, and 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock, same. On AMC, the movies, at 8 o'clock, Live Free or Die Hard, a 2007 action film with Bruce Willis. And then at 11, Terminator 3. There you go. Let's see. On Black Entertainment, at 7:30, Nutty Professor 2, The Clumps. That's got Eddie Murphy and Janet Jackson in it. I'm still looking, folks. I haven't gone away or fell asleep yet. I'm still looking. I'm looking for movies. If you don't have HBO, there's no point in me reading that to you, because I know I don't have it. If you like OWN, If Loving You Is Wrong is what's on there, and then Queen Sugar. So let's find Turner Classic Movies. He ran all the way at 8 o'clock. It's a 1951 crime drama with John Garfield. And then at, I think it's 9:30 or 10, it's hard to read the numbers down this far, Anthony Adverse, a 1936 romance with Frederick March and Olivia de Havilland. How about that? Well, this concludes our reading of the Fayetteville Observer. Your radio hosts have been
Jessica Bullock
and Tina Beatty, and please tune in at 1 p.m. when you can hear an hour of the Paraglide. At 2 for a tape broadcast of the Southern Pines pilot. At 4 you can hear Off the Bookshelf. Additionally, you will hear a rebroadcast of today's Fayetteville Observer tonight at 9. And we will now join the Raleigh Network for additional news of interest. Thank you for tuning us in. We've enjoyed being with you this morning, and we hope you have a wonderful day. And I would like to say, since I will not be here next Tuesday, that I wish all of you a happy Thanksgiving. And I hope you have a wonderful holiday, and God bless you. See you soon. Bye-bye. Are you here next week? Where do you live? Where's your home?
Wilson.
So will you be going home for Thanksgiving?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I figured you would. Well, how much of a break do you get from school?
I just have to see what day we get off. Because if we get Wednesday off, I have to see what day I'm going.